Hello and welcome to a new video, and today I want to discuss an interesting topic. Why was the Roman Empire so strong? It is really interesting to see how the Roman Empire and also the Roman Republic got beat in battles actually quite some times. For example, if we look at the Battle of Cannae, Rome got defeated dramatically, and still Rome was in the end able to win the war, especially against Hannibal. Rome suffered quite some defeats, also against the barbarians, for example, the Germanics in the Teutoburger Wald in Germany, 9 AD. They lost 3 whole legions, and still they were able to march into these forests and defeat many of the Germanic tribes. Often it was like this, that Rome got defeated but attacked again and then won the battle, and with this the whole war. It was often basically that Rome could suffer many defeats and was still able to go on with the war, while Rome's enemy suffered one defeat and was defeated completely. And the reason for that is really not Rome's military power, which was of course kind of the strongest in their world, if you want to argue like this. That's completely fine, with kind of the only professional military besides of course Carthage, but they didn't have that professional army like the Romans. But anyways, the most important thing therefore was the Roman economy. Now, why was the economy so important for their wars? Basically it was like this. They had a huge economy behind their army, so if they suffered in defeat, they were able to basically equip a whole new army very fast, and it would not completely destroy the whole empire if they would lose, for example, one legion. They were able to basically build up a new legion and equip it almost as well as the legion before. Maybe if they were in a haste, they didn't really train the soldiers like the veterans before in the legion, but still you pretty much had like a new legion which was almost as good as the old one. Of course we'll have to look here as well. If the old one was full of veterans, etc., that had many fights, this legion was still much better. But equipment wise it was almost the same, if not even the same as the old legion. So you had this whole new army, and this was only possible because of Rome's economy. If you look, for example, at barbarian tribes, what the Romans called barbarians, the Germanic tribes, they didn't have that. They basically just had people having a weapon, and when they got killed, it was that. They didn't really have a huge economy behind that could produce weapons, armor. This was not the case. So for them, a defeat, the destruction of their army, was also the end of the war, because they couldn't really resist much anymore. They basically sent everything in they had, while the Romans still had quite a large economy back home and also manpower reserves, which made it possible for them to just muster a new army, while the barbarians always fought an one-fight war basically. They had to win every battle. If they got defeated in a battle, they were mostly just defeated in the whole war. They had no chance anymore. Of course, this is not the case for every barbarian tribe. There were tribes that had to lose many battles before they got defeated, but therefore they had basically never really defeated the Romans, since they didn't put everything they had on the Romans, which you needed to actually defeat this highly professional army. It is really the case, you needed everything you had to defeat the Romans. We see it also at Boudica in Britannia, who was basically a queen and basically revolted against the Roman rule. She defeated with her army, which was basically her whole people, and also from other tribes. They defeated a Roman legion, they defeated 2 Roman legions, but they were just not able to actually defeat later the last Roman legion in Britannia. That would have been a complete victory over Roman Britannia. They could have reconquered the whole island, but they were just not able to do it. Well, obviously this had also other reasons. For example, the terrain and the weather was very good for the Romans in that final battle. But in that final battle, even though Rome lost 2 battles before, Rome was able to actually defeat Boudicca and with that win the complete war. They defeated the army of Boudicca and with that basically killed or took prisoner most of her people. While if we look at Cannae back, we see the Romans lost, to some estimates, up to 70,000 men. 70,000, and they were still able to muster just a new army, just to send another one in, even though they lost 70,000 men, which was a huge number for that time. If you imagine it in Roman legions later, it were over 10 Roman legions, which is a huge number, which is basically normally it would be the end for every empire losing that many men, 10 legions. But it was not the end for Rome. They had the economy behind, even though it was of course on the very last drain. They really had to put everything in to muster a new army again to defeat Hannibal, which in the end worked, obviously, also with other tactics. But it worked in the end, and even though they had to use the last drain, it would have been pretty much the end for every other empire or every other country, really, a tribe at that time. I hope you find that video interesting and you could learn something. I hope you liked it and I wish you a great day. If you have any advices or ideas, just write it in the comments. Thank you for watching and bye for now.